Hello, buddy boys! Continuing our 4 months of Oscar segment, this month, of course, being winners of Best Picture, we have a classic that's true to every definition of that word, which obviously took home 4 other Oscars out of its 10 nominations, including Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, Best Editing, and Best Art Direction. We have The Apartment. Released by United Artists, but also MGM later in the humble new decade of 1960, starring one of the greatest actors of all time, Jack Lemmon, as C.C. Bud Baxter, a hopeless clerk who works on the 19th floor Ordinary Policy Department, Premium Accounting Division, desk number 861, an insurance company, obviously. The only way for him to move on up in his job is to lend his key to his apartment to a couple of higher-up executives, where they take their floozies and mistresses. When he starts to fall in love with Miss Fran Kubelik, played wonderfully by Shirley MacLaine, he thinks a brand new romantic and purposeful life can begin, until he learns she's actually the mistress of his main boss, J.D. Sheldrick, played with such quiet menace by Fred MacMurray. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll level with ya. I've always had a love/hate relationship with this film because having seen it multiple times throughout my life, my film knowledge and experience has progressed, and too many times I see the easy qualities of the writing that doesn't make me just bow down to the artistry of Billy Wilder. Like one of my heroes, Peter Bogdanovich, when I first saw a lot of Billy Wilder's movies, I love them of course, but as I've matured and grown, I come back to his films just feeling like so many other filmmakers made movies with the same flavor and flair, much more interestingly and more compelling. Not to mention the fact that Wilder, for the most part, takes a lot of things from Ernst Lubitsch, one of the greatest directors of cinema. And let's face facts, Ernst Lubitsch, whatever he did it better. Critic Andy Saris has apparently called the works of Billy Wilder as curdled Lubitsch, which is definitely a perfect way to describe his art. Even though nothing against Billy Wilder personally, he has such a phenomenal story, which wait until his video comes out. So there was a point where I thought The Apartment was quite overrated. And you know what, folks? Having rewatched the film just recently, I still had issues with it, but nevertheless, you can't deny that it's absolutely enjoyable and extremely well done. I still find the screenplay utterly witty in places, just as everyone does, and that's classic Wilder. He always has clever thinking characters, and his pacing for the most part is on point for the comedy, and it helps ginormously when you have phenomenal actors in the lead roles like Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine. Billy Wilder compared Jack Lemmon to Charlie Chaplin, where Jack could just fill in whatever was missing in the character. And yes, it's Jack Lemmon that makes the character of C.C. Bud Baxter such a lovable guy. The fact that he has to let his bosses use his apartment, which costs him $85 a month, which in today's inflation, that's $900 a month. $900 frickin' dollars a month for an apartment a block away from Central Park? Get the frick out of here. But to let his bosses use it for their mistresses in order for him to move up in his company is just unethical and immoral. And you can absolutely see it eats him. But in the end, it's deep, passionate love that drives him to grow some balls and become a man of principle. Most people will never forget that classic image of Bud straining spaghetti with a tennis racket on top of Shirley MacLaine running through the streets of New York to be with Bud. It's those kind of images that keep the film really precious. Speaking of Shirley MacLaine, for the longest time, this was my absolute favorite performance of hers. For, let's be honest, most female characters Billy Wilder wrote were mostly jaded, devious, very flawed women, and Fran is really no different, but there is such a quiet innocence and a hopeless romantic spirit that lives in her that's dying to get out. As far as a modern retrospective, her character arc is very relevant to today. Every scene between she and MacMurray is very tense, almost too uncomfortable in a tasteful way, because we see how much of a dickless sleazeball Sheldrake is, and Fred MacMurray always gave it the right amount of masculine nastiness to see his charm, but also the devil that pops out of it from time to time. And boy, did he receive some flack for the performance, given to the fact that this time, people would know him as the Disney dad. My 3 sons, of course. But honestly, thank God he did take this role, because he was always great as villains, like the scene where he fires his frickin' secretary, Miss Olsen, because she was a mistress of his, and being jealous, she tried to ruin the relationship between Sheldrake and Fran. But of course, the whole ensemble is amazing, like Ray Walston, for God's sakes. Jesus, he's hilarious. Or David Lewis, and of course, Jack Kruschen in his only Oscar-nominated performance for Best Supporting Actor as Dr. Dreyfus, Bud's next-door neighbor. He gives a great amount of support and really gets the time to shine in the scene where Fran overdoses on sleeping pills, spoiler, and he just slaps the shit out of her, which always made me feel so dead uncomfortable. But crazy thing is that the doctor consultants for the film said that they would actually slap harder in order for victims of overdoses to really stay awake. Now, the Oscar-winning production design of the film is quite extraordinary if you really dig deep on it, because that 19th floor with all those desks were specifically designed by Alexandre Chanauer and Edward G. Boyle that had adult-sized actors up front, including Lemmon, and then child actors in suits in the far background. And even further, they had cardboard cutouts and operated them by wire to really give the illusion of this ginormous conglomerate. It really adds the deep effect of big business taking over the asylum, even though I always thought King Vidor did it way better in The Crowd. Just saying. Anyway, costume design is nothing too special. It's pretty basic, but it fits well within the DP's Oscar-winning black and white cinematography. His photography is very elegant, and it represents the magic and hope of New York, that it does give the yearn of wanting to live there, despite the fact that we have our hero surrounded by evil, sex-driven businessmen. Now, Billy Wilder and IAL Diamond's Oscar-winning screenplay is one of the best out of the 12 screenplays they ever wrote together because of reasons I gave earlier, and it retains one of those hard ideals for classic films. It remains ever so relevant to the human spirit of today, especially as one of a million New York stories of personal growth. It's really not just the growth for Baxter to get his self-respect and backbone, but it's Fran's growth to climb out of what she deserves as a person. Wilder apparently got the idea of the script from David Lean's brief encounter, asking himself, what about the guy that lent his apartment for Trevor Howard and Celia Johnson? What morals does he have? Ah! But also based on a real-life affair between Joan Bennett and producer Walter Wanger. And then Walter was shot by Agent Jennings Lang. That's quite strange. Being a Wilder film, it's obviously quite controversial on its depiction of adultery, which many critics and audiences denounced at the time. But it was a progressive look at how simplicity and morals can win the day. At the end of the day, folks, it remains one of the greatest romantic comedies and one of the greatest films of all time, which historically won Billy Wilder the Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Screenplay honors, becoming the first to do so. All in all, I give The Apartment an A. And that's how it crumbles. But tell me, in a fax, ladies and gentlemen, do you agree? Do you like The Apartment? Do you hate it? List in the comments below. Stay tuned for more to come. Thank you so much for watching. And let me tell you, folks, I absolutely adore you. Shut up and deal.